The world is saved. The living room's dark save for light being cast from the big TV screen and the imminent sunrise that's teasing the one starry sky with whispers of morning.
Hey, George.
Hey, Lions.
Dude, I'm super excited about this one.
Really? I mean, I'm a little nervous considering that the world ended 18 years ago. So,
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, like, this is supposed to be a world, not necessarily our world. So the fact that they use like an AD BC calendar,
Yeah.
I actually have right here in my notes, because I think you and I had talked about this, but I think we did this all offline. Is like, you actually didn't play a lot of RPGs from this era as a kid.
that is correct. And in fact, I did not realize that until we were discussing this, and you said like, "Oh, well, which RPG do you want to play? You know, pick one that you played, and we'll play it." And I was like, "Sure." Wait, and then it just all of a sudden came crashing back to me that I did not start playing RPGs until I was in high school, and I started with Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. Which, I mean, is a perfectly respectable place to start, but you know, having a whole thing about like classic video games and all, and like knowing you're a giant nerd, which, sorry if I'm the first to reveal that to you. I know. Like this, because I mean, my childhood, I played a lot of video games, but I think of it as playing RPGs.
Right.
So I'm simultaneously sad for Kid George, but there's that part of me that like I'm trying to resist the urge to like shove the things I like down someone else's throat. But like I want to sit you down and be like, quit your job. Tell your wife to take care of your kid full time. You need to play this and this and this and this, and then in between we need to talk about them. And like, it's yeah.
It's gonna be like that scene from A Clockwork Orange where you've just like got me like wrenched down like with my
eyes open.
Yeah, just like play these games.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is a modern RPG is often like a 60+ hour experience because there's like 20 hours of main story and then like an unlimited amount of side nonsense. Whereas like a Super Nintendo era RPG is like 20 hours kind of period.
Yeah.
So, I mean, still, you know, 20 hours is not nothing, but it's not like saying like, oh, you've never played Skyrim? You should play the whole thing this weekend.
Oh, God. Yeah, no, with Skyrim, I actually had a friend of mine who said like, yeah, no, I'm really excited about playing Skyrim. And then like a week later, he's like, I have not progressed at all through this game. I can't stop doing side quests. I'm like, you have to ignore the side quests. And he's like, I can't. I'm like, then you're never going to get anywhere in that game. But luckily, this was not that. This was
Chrono Trigger.
Yay!
The original Super Nintendo one, not the PlayStation 1 re-release, the Nintendo DS re-release, or the iPhone re-release.
Yes, the OG, the original. And I can tell you for sure that it's not the PlayStation re-release because at one point 2 years ago, I tried to start playing the PlayStation re-release, and I think I got actively mad at you. I think I don't think I called you. I think I texted you saying like, no, we did speak. And I was just kind of like, how is this tolerable? The loading is obnoxious, and it must have been 10 times worse back in the day with, and you're like, no, that didn't exist before. I was like, oh, well, this is intolerable. So yes, the original.
Yeah. And I don't, just like as an aside, now Square Enix, then Squaresoft, they basically took those games exactly as they were, wrote like a half-assed emulator, and then just shoved them onto the PlayStation. And it didn't ever seem to occur to any of the engineers that the reason Nintendo likes cartridges is because they have like basically an unlimited read speed. Like you're not throttled at how quickly you can access data on disk because you're directly connected to the disk. And then there's other bottlenecks, whereas like a CD has to be read by a laser, which is cool but slow and so like there's lots of reasons that those experiences were terrible. And whenever someone's like, oh, I'm thinking about playing, you know, Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy 3 that they re-released as part of that anthology, which is weird because those games have nothing to do with each other, I'm like, yeah, don't, you know, steal a Super Nintendo or play it on the iPhone, but for the love of God, don't play it on PS1.
Just grab them by the shoulders and you're like, I need you to, and follow me on this one. Play it on a Super Nintendo.
Yeah, pretty much. So buried the lead a little bit there, but we played Chrono Trigger this time. And this is I wouldn't say I think this is the greatest game ever made, but there are people whose opinions I respect who say that this is no question their all-time favorite game, greatest video game ever made. And I don't think it's quite worthy of that title, but I would say this is in my top 10 all-time favorite games. And this is another like Breaking Bad thing where I would say whether or not someone enjoys this game, you cannot possibly deny the craftsmanship, right? Like you may hate Breaking Bad because it's violent or because it's about drugs or whatever, but it's a really well-made television show. This is a really well-made video game.
Yes, it is certainly that. I mean, it is definitely a RPG of this era. But that being said, it is amazingly well crafted, and for a time travel video game, remarkably tight. Like it is so easy to screw up time travel stories because time travel is hard. Being third dimensional creatures and all like twisting and winding our way through the fourth dimension, just fumbling about, only able to see each other in the particular cross section of time in which we exist at that moment. It's kind of a bummer. So it's hard for us to wrap our minds around time travel bits. And and on a scale of Rick and Morty to First Contact, I think that this one gets a lot closer to like Rick and Morty levels of science fiction as opposed to First Contact.
Yeah. Oh God, the time travel, that was so bad.
Well, yeah, it was. I mean, the movie was fine. It was.
It's a Star Trek movie.
Yeah, it was innocuous, but the time travel was just kind of like, man, the Borg really screwed up their one shot with that like amazing like Achilles tendon weapon. But yeah.
Well, the thing about the time travel in this, kind of like the time travel in Looper, like Looper has one of my all-time favorite time travel hand waves, which is the main character literally says to himself, because he's traveled through time, but the main character literally says, I didn't come here to talk about time travel. And he might as well look straight into the camera when he says, like, that's not what this is about. This is about another thing.
Yeah.
And there's going to be plot holes, and you got to just deal with them.
Yeah.
And Chrono Trigger it's a story about, like saving the world. And it's a story about like these people coming together and their individual struggles. And it's a JRPG, and there's a time travel mechanic, and there are some cool things you can do using that time travel mechanic. But if they'd written a completely linear story, I don't honestly know if it would have changed it that dramatically. I should say I don't think it would have taken much away from it, because the time travel is a thing that their world has. It's not what everything hinges on.
Right. I mean, like time travel is a tool, it's not like space Jesus, it's not
it's like how you get between areas.
Yeah.
Like in Super Mario games, they never try to explain why the desert and Antarctica are like seemingly feet away from each other, unless you travel huge amounts of space that are really uneventful in between the desert and Antarctica. But there's like Snow World, Desert World, Machine World, right? Whereas like in Chrono Trigger, they kind of use the time travel mechanics to be like, now you're in the past, now you're in like future planet, now you're in like ancient dinosaur land.
Yep.
And they could have just stitched all those things together in proximity and we'd put up with it because it's a JRPG.
Right.
But they didn't. There's time travel.
Yep. So, gameplay mechanics, and also just because this is normally like our kind of catch-all thing, I also just want to, during the segment, like kind of throw in some story stuff as well, because because most of the other games we played aren't like, I mean, Mario Brothers is amazing, not story driven, very mechanics driven.
Yeah.
Like Bowser is not a narrative villain. Like I don't need to know about Bowser's childhood to know I need to go, punch that guy like a question mark block. So one of the things I do just want to touch on, because it's such a minor point, but I don't know why I got such a huge kick out of it. I really love just some good old fashioned villain dialogue in this, man. Just, I don't know why. I just loved it. Like, it was just kind of campy enough that I was just like, yay, this is fun. Particularly Ozzy, the weird
Oh,
green.
Ozzy's so good.
Yeah, yeah. Like, I literally in my notes, I think he says, what is it? Like, what? Impossible. And it's like he says that like 4 or 5 times, and his primary weapon is trapdoors. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that was amazing. And then he dies by trapdoor. I was like, yay. Yeah, I don't know why. It just I love some good old fashioned over the top villain dialogue. Man, that's good stuff.
Well, and so you can go back and optionally deal with him again later in this like third act of the game.
Oh yeah.
And if you steal from him, you get his unique armor, which are the Aussie pants. And I can't remember exactly what their effect is, but it's something like dumb and Aussie-ish. Like it's not a huge reward that you're like, yeah, I got the Aussie pants.
Yeah. I don't.
But I mean that's how deep the ridiculousness goes. Like he has ridiculous animations, he has ridiculous weapon, he has ridiculous catchphrases, and he even has a ridiculous unique item.
Ridiculous. He's even wearing ridiculous pants because that guy is ridiculous. Yeah. And one other thing that so when I was playing through, like obviously I played through over a long period of time, and so I'm not crystal clear on some point. Like it would have been easy for me to miss this. So I'm wondering, did they ever touch on Lavos's motivations? Because a lot of people are trying to use it for him. I don't know it for
It
yeah, for like nefarious purposes, but like and we assume it's evil because it's going to sing the song that ends the world. But is it?
So Lavos is I mean, you called him a tick. Like he's essentially like a galactic parasite. So he crashes into a world, he sucks all of the life out of that world, and then he launches himself into space and goes somewhere else. But they never really, until the very, very end, when you see that there's like an inner Lavos.
Mm-hmm. And then an inner Lavos.
That's right. But all of the people who know like what Lavos is and how Lavos works all believe that Lavos is like only semi-sentient. Like he doesn't have agency and autonomy. He's just doing what parasites do. And then it's not until the very last boss fight, like stage 3 of the final boss fight, where you realize like, oh no, there's like a guy in here and he's a huge schmuck.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
but they never explain what his motivation is. You just assume that his motivation is just to suck the life out of planets because he's a schmuck.
Right. Well, but like, so my, because why not literally be the devil's advocate? So like, at least I was getting the feeling that he wasn't doing it to be a jerk. He was doing it like that's how he eats, and
yeah,
in the same way that like I don't really care about like all of the bacteria in like whatever I'm eating, like he doesn't care about the people on the planet, they're bugs, right? So to me it was very reminiscent of the crystalline entity from TNG.
I thought for sure you were going to go with Galactus, but
yeah, no, I thought about Galactus, but Galactus is way more like you can talk to Galactus,
not in the terrible Fantastic Four movie where he was a cloud.
Look, I know we got to move past this. I just don't know how right now. Like, I just, God, I'm gonna pretend. You know what? Let's just rewind time and pretend that didn't happen. No, but yeah, I mean, so aside from terrible, what I would consider a terrible fan fiction, like, no, so like, but the crystalline entity, and so a part of me was just kind of like wanted to be Chrono walking up to him. It's like, I do not deny that we may be forced to fire, but I look upon that as a last option, you know? And then everybody else is like this one scientist who's like, you know, like, no, you gotta kill it. And I was just like, well, I'm obviously gonna kill it, but you know.
Yeah, but I mean, I would argue like, and I mean, I've played this game many times, and I'm a little surprised that I'm so fuzzed on this detail. But when you get to third stage Lavos, depending on who's in your party, they all react in different ways. So they say, you know, like, this is the true form of Lavos or whatever. Like, we gonna kill you now, you know,
Right.
whatever they say. But they, if I recall correctly, they all sort of imply a realization that, oh no, this isn't an agency-less monster that can't help itself. There's actually like a person in here, or a sentient being that is choosing to destroy all these worlds. And whether or not they really have enough information to make that determination, just because it has kind of a humanoid shape, like that's that's debatable. But I mean, it certainly seems to make conscious decisions and behave in a sentient way. So like the outer Lavos is more like the ship it travels around in.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, like and obviously, you know, this is like solid JRPG territory where it's like there is a big bad, the big bad is evil. You know, so I just wasn't sure, because I would love to, you know, not like, we could probably just do an entire episode on, you know, like each of us picking a side and like arguing out like whether or not Lavos is evil. But I wasn't sure if they ever like established, you know, that he was in fact like truly evil, or if just what he's doing is terrible to the planet, the people on, all this sort of stuff. But like,
I think it's mostly the second one.
Yeah, it's not that he is out to do evil. Like, for example, like the people trying to use Lavos, I would say they're evil because they're basically going to, they are aware of the thing that they are doing, and they're doing it for a selfish reason, right?
Yes.
So Lavos, you know, being inherently alien, and then also too possibly, you know, godlike, you know, he may just be like, no, I need to survive, and the suffering that I will suffer would be way more than all of these, you know, things that are basically not even really alive by my standards. So I'm going to eat this planet because that's what I do, you know?
Yeah. Maybe this is the first planet he's ever landed on that had sentient life.
Yeah.
Just like if I landed on a planet of cows, I wouldn't think twice about killing and eating the cows because I eat cows.
Yeah.
So if this is the first, they are delicious. This is the first planet he's ever landed on that had sentient life. Like, maybe he doesn't recognize it because he's never met other sentient life. I mean, yeah, there's definitely, I think, some intentional ambiguity so that the majority of your hate is actually, you fear Lavos for what might happen if you fail, but you hate the queen, you hate Magus. Like, there are other people on the planet who are like far more worthy of your derision.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure, because like when I was playing, like you know, obviously the queen is terrible, does terrible things. I mean, I hated the chancellor more than I hated Lavos, you know, because
yes, I agree.
Like, a part of me when I killed Lavos was like, this has to be done, you know, like I have to kill you because you're going to kill the planet. But like, I don't know, like in my own like headcanon, like it was just something that had to be done, but he wasn't evil. So I wasn't smiting evil so much as I was destroying something that was going to destroy me, you know?
Yeah. No, it's you're patching holes in the dam. Like, you don't want the dam to break and drown the villagers, but you don't hate the water.
Right. Well, I mean, like, to me, it was more so like, you know, if like some, you know, like, a better example for me would be like if like a rabid dog were coming at me. It's like, you know, well, I'm going to end the dog because I don't want it to kill me, but at the same point in time, like I'm not angry with the dog, and I'm a little sad for I mean, because okay, again, you know, Lavos is clearly the antagonist, right? But at the same point in time, like it's a unique life form, right? You know?
Is it? Because there's Lavos spawn. There's the little lavapides.
Right. So, and actually, that was another thing that I actually had to note was like it has children. Because what? That's different. So it's at least unique to you as far as you know? So
Yeah.
so I mean,
It may be the last of its kind, and you do murder all of its children.
correct. So, like I said, it's I don't think that it was the wrong decision, but to me, like the celebration was pointed with a bit of sadness for like the loss of this unique creature.
Yeah, no, I could feel that. And I think that's JRPGs before and since this game do not shy away from like you literally fight God. Like I think it might be Breath of Fire 4, which was a good series that does not have the place in history I think it deserves, but you don't fight a character who gains godlike abilities. You literally fight God. Like your universe has like a deity and you go to it and kill it.
Darn tootin'. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's yeah. So I mean, to fight because I mean, like you could argue like the queen and I can't remember his name, the dinosaur guy, like they kind of worship Lavos. Like he's deific.
Yeah.
He's a deific character,
Yeah.
To them. So it's very JRPG to kill God. Like God or the devil, usually God. Like it's a very JRPG thing to do. And now that I think about it, if you kill Lavos in 65 million BC, like it's an ending you can pretty much only get as like a New Game Plus ending, which we will talk about that in a second. But if you kill him then, it gives the reptites the time they need to overcome the humans. And in the ending, you see the beginning of the game where Chrono wakes up in bed and his mother opens the drapes, but everyone is reptites.
Huh.
Yep.
Yeah, no, on the final thing on like the God note, something that I'm vaguely aware of, and this is tangentially related, but like apparently, so I played Pokemon, right? Pokemon Red.
The OG.
Yeah, the OG, and then stopped forever. So, so I'm not nearly up to speed on any of the Pokemon thing, but have you heard of Arceus?
Yes, I know that in the I think 1 or 2 versions ago, they introduced Pokemon that are literally the gods and devils of that universe.
Right. Yeah. So it's like God, So it's who's then captured by a 12-year-old with a Pokeball. So like occasionally I'll just be at work, and all of a sudden like that thought will enter my mind. I'll be like, what the hell, man? Like, that's not okay. Like not even a little bit. But I think that just lends credence to the fact that like sometimes JRPGs play it a little fast and loose with deific characters.
Yeah, I mean, neither of us have anywhere near the expertise to go into this, but I suspect that there are cultural reasons that Japan has a lot of stories like this.
Yeah,
right?
That would
like
stand to reason.
Yeah, I mean, because like the Greeks saw their gods as being like very human and empathetic, and that's why they made mistakes and were total, schmucks most of the time.
Oh God, yes.
And yes. Oh gods, yes.
Oh,
So like you can, I'm sure there are obvious, like if you did probably even just a tiny bit of research,
which we're
there
not
probably
going to do, even a little bit.
Nope. But there are probably obvious reasons that like, oh, Japan has these things in its history and in its native religions, and that's why they tend to write these kinds of stories where like 5-year-olds kill God.
Yep. Or capture him and then use God to kill other Pokemon.
To collect Pidgeys and Rattatas.
Yep.
So I mentioned the New Game Plus thing, and I absolutely have to talk about this because I've had this thing lately where, and I mean, you're a scientist, so hopefully you'll be on my side with this, but once you have a better way to do a thing, I think the correct behavior is to swear off the inferior way forever and to judge people who refuse to move to the new way. So here's my example, because that sounds really extreme out of context.
No, I agree. I'm totally into it. Keep going.
So I do have an interesting example because it's really trivial, but it's one of those things. There is a parking garage that I have to go to regularly, and there's a sign outside, and it just says whether or not each floor has spaces or not. And it's based, as near as I can tell, on the random guessing of whoever controls that sign. Because sometimes it says open and it is super not open. Sometimes it says full and it is super not full. So there's no actual like measurement going on. It's just like if sign employee feels good about the floor that day. So I was talking.
There's no correlation between that sign.
Yeah, not at all. So I was visiting with my parents recently, and I was joking about it. It was relevant in the conversation. I made a joke about it, and they said that there is a parking garage that's new at Disney World where all of the parking spaces have sensors in them. So when you go onto a floor in the parking garage, not only does it tell you accurately whether or not there are any spaces open, it tells you where they are.
That's pretty awesome.
And I was like, as soon as my father was done telling me this, I literally said, that is now the new way all parking garages must be designed forever until someone thinks of a better way. Because the technology required to make that happen costs like $5 at Radio Shack. Like
nice.
you need optical sensors and you need a Raspberry Pi and then you need like a screen to display the information on. Like this is not technologically complicated. It's just a good design.
It's not technologically complicated, and the increased cost by comparison to the structure itself is trivial.
Yes, so, the paint to repaint all the lines would cost more.
Yeah. No, actually, I think that if anybody disagrees with what I'm about to say, please feel free to email me at IDon'tCare@shutthehellup.com.
That's a cool email address.
What? Yeah, right. I specifically started it so I could make business cards that I could hand to people that says like, yeah, you can email me at go to hell. I don't care what you think. But it's basically a real world example of epistemic responsibility, which is that, you are not allowed to have thoughts, feelings, beliefs, or ideas that you can't logically back up, because once you find something where you're like, okay, well, there's thing A and thing B is clearly superior to thing A, unless I can justify hanging on to that idea, thought, belief, pattern of doing things, you have to abandon it and do thing B. And that is absolutely what good science is based on. And not doing that is what bad science is based on.
So before I tie this back to Chrono Trigger, real-time follow-up here. Shutthehellup.com is someone's actually squatting on that domain and is trying to get into a bidding war for someone to buy it from them.
Nice. Yeah,
because as soon as you said that, I was like, well, there's no way that doesn't exist. But they're not even using it for anything.
It's a bummer.
They should start an email service.
I was going to say, I'm actually more upset that somebody has it and isn't doing anything with it than, that's worse.
Yeah. So I went on this crazy rambling diatribe here to talk about New Game Plus, because I don't think Chrono Trigger is the first game I ever played that had a New Game Plus, but it's one of the best examples in my mind of the New Game Plus, because there are 12 and then later 13 endings to this game, up to and including fighting Lavos literally the first thing you do.
Right.
Like you go into the fair and then you fight Lavos with just you and Marley, and it's hard because you only have two people. You have all your equipment and you have all your levels, but you only have two people in your party and you have to be very powerful, and he's harder than the normal fight. So like that's how you get the Dream Project ending. But when you replay, you have not just the value of bringing all of your stuff along and getting to go through the game as a godlike force of nature, but there's an incentive, because it's like, oh, all of those times you potentially could have interacted with Lavos, if you beat him at each of those different stops, you get rewarded with a different ending. And some of them are actually very interesting. Some of them are complete throwaway jokes, like everyone being reptites or everyone being... There's actually another ending where you can make Frog end up with the queen. Like the queen leaves the king for Glenn.
Nice.
And so then when you go back to that future, everyone is frogs, but they're disguised as humans. And then Marley realizes she is actually also now a frog, and she like croaks, haha, the end, credits.
Nice.
And right, but it's like the fact that they spent that little bit, because the game itself is identical. Like, you play through the same game, you have all the same choices and options, but you get all these extra endings, which story wise is a bunch of extra work, but programming and development wise is probably not that much work at all. And even if there was no additional material, no additional endings, no additional anything, why does every game not have a new game plus? It must be so easy to implement. There's no excuse.
I would definitely say that there are some games. I mean, like, there's some games that inherently can't have New Game Plus. For example, like Overwatch. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't expect to have a new game plus in Tetris.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, that being said, certainly with RPGs, I don't know why, because New Game Pluses are just. I mean, like you said, like literally, even if there's nothing else, all you do is you just restart at the beginning with all of your levels, equipment, and all of those sort of stuff. That's fun, and it takes no additional time or resources. You just dump them in at the beginning and then keep going. One of my favorite ones that I played forever ago, and I think we discussed it, was Tales of Symphonia.
Yes.
And one of the things that they did was they had like a grade system, which is as you played, you got grade points basically, and then when you went into New Game Plus, you could buy different options with your grade. So you could do like 10 times damage or 1 times damage, or retain your levels or just your items or whatever, right? And so because of that, I probably played that game all the way through about 5 times, because you always retained your grade, right?
Right.
So like every time I played through, I could buy like better stuff, like to play through with. And this game in particular, I think, is just the time travel mechanic alone is perfect for a New Game Plus, because you're like, you can very easily say, okay, well, when I went back to 12,000 BC, what if I just punched this guy right in his smug face? And to me, I think the best part of a New Game Plus is, like, let's take Lord Dalton, right? A schmuck, if there was ever a schmuck, right?
Who deserves to be punched in his smug face?
He does. So, like, there are definitely some story moments, and I do want to touch on that here in a second. There are definitely some story moments where, like, basically it's cinematic, blam, you're dead, whatever, right? But I don't know why. I always just feel a lot more like smug and self-righteous when I know that I'm like 50 levels higher than I'm supposed to be. And he's just like, oh, you can never defeat me. It's like, oh, you're already dead. Like, I don't know. I enjoy that.
No, I'm with you. When there's the forced, you have to lose this battle for the story to progress, which Chrono Trigger does a couple times, but it's usually not a whole fight. It's just like a sequence.
Yeah, which I appreciate, because you don't blow all your potions on something where you're just gonna die.
God, so annoying.
Yeah, no, this is the buyer's remorse.
Yeah, no, and actually, Dalton has one of my favorite little kind of winks to the audience, where he steals your time machine, the epoch, the epoch.
Oh, I named mine Buttface. Is that
Buttface?
Yeah, the Buttface.
The Buttface. It's good. The winged Buttface.
No, actually, I wanted to. Like the first time I think they let you rename the main character, I was just kind of like, oh, I can name him Buttface. And then I was like, no, I want a purity of experience. So I left all of the names as the defaults.
Yeah, I mean, on a second or third or fourth playthrough, like, you definitely have to do that. And I think if you're a kid, like if you're, 10 or 12 playing through this game for the first time, you can usually tell, like, if you take someone else's cartridge and you look up their save file from when they were like 13, you can tell like who their best friend was, who their boyfriend or girlfriend was, like if they had a sibling that they were really close with, or a cousin or something, like, because all the characters are renamed. And then if there's like the one like comic relief character that nobody likes, it's like, oh, that's the friend in their group that like they don't really like that much, but like they let them hang around. Like, that's the Wormtail friend.
Yeah. No, it's actually Frank did one. One of our mutual friends did one that I particularly thought was awesome. When he played through Final Fantasy Tactics, he made all of the characters, like all the blank characters, monks, and named them after DBZ characters. And I was like, that, sir, was a fantastic use of your time. Absolutely.
Seriously, yeah. That's a fair amount of dedication.
Yeah. No, he said it took a fair amount of time. And then, like, he, cross-trained them or whatever. But, like, they were always like monks at heart, and yeah. So, but anyways,
That's,
no, I kept all of the standard names.
yeah. I mean, it's a thing. Like the whole New Game Plus construct is wherever it makes even the tiniest bit of sense to not have it seems negligent, like not lazy. It seems actively negligent because a game like Tales of Symphonia, they have to put in like a whole mechanic, right? And like that's additional design, and they have to be thoughtful about how those additional superpowers are going to affect the game. And because they don't want you to just replay once or twice, they want you to replay like 10 times.
Right.
Whereas with Chrono Trigger, they're really only incentivizing you to play twice. And if you want to play more than that, you can, because you can't actually stack your New Game Pluses forever. But you're really only incentivized to play twice because you can get the primary ending on your first playthrough and then all of the extra endings on your second playthrough. Because the first time you fight Lavos, you beat him, then you reload your save, then you go to the next time you can fight Lavos, and you beat him, and then you go to the next time, and so on like that. So you're only required to play twice, but if you want to play more, you can. And then in a game like The Last of Us, which I think has probably one of the better New Game Plus implementations I've seen, because it's right in the sweet spot. It's not as throwaway as Chrono Triggers, where the game itself doesn't change, and it's not as involved as Tales of Symphonia, where the whole game has to be rebalanced around your superpowers.
Right.
It's you cannot possibly get everything in one playthrough. Do you want to power up all of your weapons? Got to play through at least twice. Do you want to get all of the vitamins that make you stronger? Got to play through at least twice. Like, that's just the way they balanced the game. And that took extra design work. Like, they had to be thoughtful about enemy placement and how difficult things were in distributing resources. But like programming wise, like once they had that idea, to actually implement it in the game was to just say like, oh, you can play the game twice.
Yeah. I mean, and like you said, is that like, even if you don't want to do any additional work, even if all you do is just say like, hey man, once you beat the game, you can play the game again with like everything that you had at the ending just at the beginning. Like that in and of itself is better than not having that,
Yeah, I would take just that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like the Tales of Symphonia, The Last of Us, like all of those are very nuanced and good, and I would rather have that. But yeah, man, barring that, even if they just dropped Joel back at the beginning with all of his swag and you could have had all the swag, but then you can play through from the beginning with all the swag. It's like, yeah, man, I'm totally into it. Like, let's do this thing. Yep. So, one of the things I did want to touch on real fast, because I just get it. This is first of all, this is not a complaint. It is an observation. The reason why it's not a complaint is because it's so ubiquitous. And it's like one of those things that used to bug the crap out of me. And now I'm just kind of like, man, whatever. But whenever you have an NPC that you fight at some point, that joins your party, how hard they get nerfed when they join your party.
Yeah.
Because like
they do explain it though.
I might have missed that. I might have.
Lavos drains him of his powers.
Right. No,
because he's theoretically strong enough to think he can go one-on-one with Lavos, but then he gets drained of his powers.
No, you're right. They actually did say that, and I just didn't connect the two. I just was, because at this point in my life, I was just ready for it. I was just kind of like, oh yeah, this guy just dealt 10,000 damage to. Bet you he's got less than 10,000 hit points. Oh, less than 1,000 hit points. Wow, man, no, that's good. That's good. But yeah, no, that actually makes sense.
And Magus is an excellent example of well thought out, like additional things you can investigate on a second playthrough, because when you go to fight him on the hilltop, he says like, do you want to fight me? And if you say no and then you walk away, he's like, I'll come with you.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. If you say yes, then you kill him and then he's gone.
Yeah.
And if you go with Frog in your party, Frog is like, everyone stand back, and you have to fight him one-on-one. Yeah, so there's like some really serious attention to detail paid there. Like, it's not just like, oh, you have like 6 characters you could choose from and they're virtually interchangeable. Like, it actually matters, the dialogue, the way people react to events, and then sometimes even the way they impact gameplay dramatically changes at certain points depending on who's with you.
Yeah, no, and that is fantastic because like when Yamagos was like, "Hey man, you're gonna fight," I was like, "No, no." But like a part of me, like I hovered over the yes for like in my mind, like the time I was hovering over the yes was my character going like, "No, yeah, you know what? No, let's just go our separate ways, man. Not worth the fight." And he's like, all right, we can hang." I'm like, "Bro, I did not say we were hanging. Like, I don't remember inviting you to this party. Like, this is an AB."
We're not going to a third location. This is not.
Yeah, no, this is not like. Yeah, I'm going home after this. I'm not going to another bar, and you're not coming in my house. So this is where we part ways. I just didn't want him here anymore.
So Dalton gets a nice little fourth wall break where when he's stealing the ship from you and he's like, cue the music, and they put on like silly music and he's like, not that music, and they put on like the action sequence music.
Mm-hmm.
I think the coolest fourth wall break in the game, because there's only a handful, it's not a lot, but the coolest one in the game is when you use the like restoration pods in the sad post-apocalyptic future. It says HP and MP restored, but you're still hungry. And I remember seeing that as a kid and being like, wait, what?
Yep.
And like now as an adult, like I've played games where there is a food mechanic and you do have to eat, and Chrono Trigger obviously doesn't have that. But the fact that they had the wherewithal to point out to you, like, your HP is how close you are to death.
Right.
It has nothing to do, like, it's your physical well-being. It has nothing to do with like if you're well fed and hydrated and if you've slept. And so the fact that they point out like, yeah, these people have these restorative pods which keep them physically like healthy-ish, but they're suffering. They're in like they're almost in like a Sisyphusian hell. Like
right.
These machines are sustaining them, but they're miserable.
And actually, no, I thought that was a very necessary point, because when I went in there, I was like, oh yeah, and then I was like, oh, HPMP restored, cool. And like a part of my brain said like, why do these people look so ragged? And I was like, yeah, dude, whatever, man. They've got to give you your HP and MP back. It's not the end of the world. And then when it's like, but you're still hungry. I thought that they were going to introduce a hunger mechanic, and I was like, I don't want to.
I don't want to do this.
I don't want to deal with eating. Hunger mechanics are awful in most games. So, and then you find out like the whole Lavos thing, and then you go and you get seeds, and they just lose their mind about seeds, and you're like, oh, the reason why I'm still hungry is because I haven't eaten. And the reason why I haven't eaten is because there isn't any food here and they're starving to death. And to me, is like you said, like it keeps them physically healthy, and this is definitely reading too much into it, but it's like almost like the law of conservation of mass, so it's like that machine does what it can with like the food that you have, right? So like if you've got like a stomach full of food, it basically allows your body to very quickly metabolize that food and then heal you,
Oh, okay.
Restore stamina. But like for them who have no food, like the machines can't catalyze any of their body's processes because they lack the reagents, they lack the input,
That is looking way too deep into it, but I super like
it. So that was like kind of where I went with it. So to me, like they can't effectively use the machines because they're basically starving to death. So
well, it also certain RPGs are better about this than others. Like Final Fantasy 6 or 3, depending on if you're a jerk about it, has like each town has like a fair number of buildings. Like not 1,000 buildings, but like each town is not just like shop in one house, right?
You mean like the towns I build in D&D, pretty much?
Exactly. But like the towns in Chrono Trigger are fairly small. They're not the smallest I've ever seen in an RPG, but they're fairly small. But the implication is that the town is bigger than that. But it's like you're not gonna walk into every single house. Get over yourself.
Right.
And I feel like when they point out like HPMP restored, but you're still hungry, the implication is like, yeah, your characters are always eating. like you eat and sleep and like you have normal bodily functions. These people in this world do not have regular access to food. And now that you're here, you don't have regular access to food.
I agree completely. Actually, that's something that I try to emphasize in, like, whenever like I DM for D&D, is I'm like, I'm not worried about food or water or, like everybody has a bag of holding. So I'm not worried about carrying capacity too much. Like, just because that bogs it down.
Right.
But then, if all of a sudden, like, the players are like, oh yeah, we're going to go do something obscenely stupid. Like, strand ourselves on, a ice shelf with no bag of holding or anything like that. I'm just kind of like, okay, now we're going to start worrying about food because you have put yourself into a terrible situation, and food, you cannot assume that you have normal access to food. Actually, I did one time where their money was worthless because they just were in a place that didn't accept their currency. I'm like, what are you doing for food? Because food exists, you don't have the means to procure it. So
right.
yeah.
Yeah, so stuff like that it's because otherwise to say like, oh, your character hasn't gone to the bathroom in a while, it's like, no, don't do that. That's not this isn't supposed to be like a one-to-one simulator of real life.
Right.
But when it's relevant, like if I'm in a place where my money is no good or where food is not plentiful, like then you can use it to make interesting story elements. And like you said, they don't then use this as an opportunity to be like, oh, now there's a food mechanic and now you got to worry about food. It's like, no, it's not what this is about. In fact, they almost do the opposite because at another point in the game, you have to bring food to the troops. It's like right before this.
Yeah.
You have to bring food to the troops, and what you bring them is beef jerky.
Yep. Yeah, I noticed that. and like the interesting thing about the lexicon is, beef jerky is both the singular and plural,
Yes.
Like,
yeah, it's not beef's jerky or something weird.
yeah, beef jerkies, like so it's like, you got beef jerky. I'm like, really? I'm bringing a strip of beef jerky. Like, that's almost worse than nothing to be like, here's your food. Let me cross the bridge, you jerk. What? But then I realized that it was a large one. And don't you at one point try to give the king beef jerky and then he loses his mind about his cholesterol?
That doesn't ring a bell. I know there's like a side quest you can do where you bring beef jerky to a woman, and it's like how you get one of those super weapons.
I mean, I know meth is a hell of a drug, so I may be off on this. But no, I'm pretty sure at some point, like, you're doing like a side quest with Marley, and like, I remember bringing the king beef jerky. And this was a while ago, but I remember bringing the king beef jerky and him yelling at me about his cholesterol, and then like disowning Marley.
I mean, I remember when he disowns her. I don't remember this beef jerky episode.
I'm gonna see if I can track that down. Like,
I mean, it's possible. Like, if you go and talk to him when you have the beef jerky in your inventory, like maybe you get unique dialogue, and I just never did that, or I don't recall it, because there are lots of places in the game where like a sentence or two is different if so and so is with you, or if you haven't gone and done whatever. So like it's very possible.
Yeah, and that's actually something that modern games that this game did very, very well, and that some modern games today like still mess up, where it's like dialogue trees where, like, for instance, let's just assume that the beef jerky thing is real. So so like, having the beef jerky and not having the beef jerky, the end's the same. The king disowns Marley, right?
Right.
So it functionally doesn't require that many more resources because, it doesn't really change the plot, or the further dialogues or anything like that. But it does give you so much more weight to everything, because the idea is then like everything you're doing has an impact. And that's, I think, very, very good. And I think that a lot of games, modern games especially, try to do that too much, in the sense that they actually try to have what you do impact the plot. It's like, it doesn't need to. It doesn't have to. Every decision you make doesn't have to make a brand new game. Like, there doesn't have to be like 1,000 different endings. It's like, no, they can come back down to one or two, but you do need to feel like I did a thing that changed stuff.
Well, it's I think the problem is scope. So in Chrono Trigger, the world behaves a little bit differently or reacts a little bit differently to you depending on like these minor things, which just makes the world feel alive.
Right.
Whereas like in a lot of modern games, they're like, you have to make this life or death decision and it's a huge deal. And then later you find out, oh no, actually the story progresses identically. And the only thing that was different was that one dialogue tree, but you acted like I was having this gigantic, profound impact on the universe, and I freaking wasn't.
Right.
So that's like, I agree. If you can do a full branching story, like that's cool and interesting, but I would rather just feel like I inhabit the world. Like it's what you keep saying. It's immersion. I want to feel like my actions have consequences, even if those consequences are just like, oh, you have beef jerky in your inventory. I'm going to have 2 lines of dialogue about beef jerky.
Yeah, exactly. So
to that end, I have to ask you about your trial. How did your trial go?
So if I remember, because it's been a while since the trial, I was found unanimously not guilty, which is why I was really salty about being like when the chancellor brought him down. I was like, yeah, he's guilty, kill him. I'm like, whoa, no, man.
You were found unanimously not guilty,
if I remember correctly.
So that means when you were at the fair, you stumbled into only doing the right thing. I mean, I'm not calling you a liar. I'm just shocked.
No. Okay, so I have not played this game before. However, I do watch the YouTube channel Extra Credits, which everybody should check that out. It's a great channel.
Agreed.
And
brought to you by Extra Credits.
Yeah. And they mentioned this about like choice and consequences, you know? They mentioned this in an episode. So I knew kind of like going in that I was like, oh man, I got to do like, so I went out and like anything that was like good, I was like, okay, because like I helped somebody find
find their cat.
Yeah, find a cat, yeah. And all that fun jazz.
You have to the 2 things that stand out in my mind are you have to bring the cat back to the little girl, and you have to talk to Marley before you go pick up the pendant.
Yes.
And then there's like 1 or 2 other things that I can't think of.
Yeah, because I basically, I mean, to be fair, I totally cheated because I knew that was going to be like a thing. So like I was like, all right, what's all the good stuff? And I, like looked it up, and I was, because I don't know, I knew I was only going to play through it the once, so I wanted to like cheat a little bit. So yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, I totally front loaded it and like did my homework and made sure I did all of the good things. And in particular, I remember them saying like if you like go picking up random stuff like out of people's houses and stuff, they bring that up, and I was like, yeah, because they should, because that makes you a monster.
Yeah. So there's like a robot that Luca built that you can fight, and you get like real experience for fighting it. So you can gain like a couple of levels if you're willing to sink a few minutes into it, and you get the silver points or whatever they're called, which you can exchange for like real money. So there's actually a little bit of an incentive in this very safe space to fight this robot over and over, especially because right behind you, outside where the robot is this guy's lunch that he left sitting on this table, and you can eat his lunch and then you get all of your HPs back. And then and Marley even has like a little cute, she's like, oh, Chrono, you're such a pig, tee-hee. And then you just, you go, you fight the robot, you go, you steal the lunch, you fight the robot, you steal lunch, you fight the robot, you steal lunch. And the first time I played this and I got to the trial and the guy comes in and he's like, that asshole stole my lunch. I was like, wait, my actions have consequences?
What? Yeah. And I think that, and to be fair, I some of this I got from Extra Credits, but I think that they do a great job with that, because that is all they needed to do to align the player of like your actions, no matter how small, can have consequences. This isn't your normal RPG where there's like gamey mechanics. I mean, and there inevitably are at some points, but like they immediately and starkly drive home the point, because that's the thing is they don't tell you at the beginning, like, hey, your actions have consequences. Like they wait until you've done the thing you're always going to do and then check you. And I think another example that they give in Extra Credits, I think is a great one, is in Deus Ex, where like,
the room where you're gathering like loot, and if you take more than like 5 minutes, like a serious character dies.
Yeah, I think it's like an explosion happens, where they're basically like, there are terrorists in this area, and you have to get there before they blow up the building, and you're like, Side quests, obviously. And then if enough time goes by, it just explodes. I was like, yeah, what did we just say? So, and especially in a game that's so much about causality and time travel, I think that was absolutely necessary and amazing call that I
Yes.
totally circumnavigated and cheated because I wanted to be unanimously not guilty.
No, that's fair. But I mean, it's a perfect example of like, my choices don't have to completely alter the story, and it doesn't have to be a choose your own adventure book where I now get a totally custom ending. You're still guilty, you still fight the dragon robot, like everything is still identical, but you feel differently about it. Cause like the first time I went through and I was found guilty and I was like, I'm innocent. These are all circumstantial things that aren't involved. Whereas when you were found guilty, you were like, no.
Yeah.
Everyone here is talking about how I'm, Jesus returned, like I'm a total Mother Teresa. How are you finding me guilty? So like I felt like confused and scared, and you were like indignant.
Oh, I was, well, especially because when you're found unanimously not guilty, like it's just like not guilty, and they're like, all right, well, he's free to go, and the chancellor's like, all right, let's just go process your paperwork, just come right over here, and then like he literally brings you up to the thing. And I think honestly at this point the two storylines converge identically, because he just says like, this person has been found guilty, execute him in 3 days, which is probably
Right.
the exact same dialogue, which I kind of like because it fit, like it, and that's a great example of like good writing, because no matter what your storyline is, they converge on that same point, and that line, whether you were found innocent or guilty, makes sense. And yeah, I was really salty about it because especially, this was my first playthrough, and like I did the extra legwork. Like I was like, no, this took time and energy. I had to make sure that I did only the good things. I was found unanimously not guilty. He's like, yeah, no, he's guilty, execute him. I'm like, this isn't fair. Oh, I'm coming for you, Chancellor. Oh man, I'm gonna kill you first. And then they heard me say that, and then that didn't help my case like at all. He's guilty. I'm not guilty. Oh man, but when I get a hold of you, it's like maybe we should just put him in jail anyways.
That's a great joke from The Simpsons. Tell them they'll live to regret this. You'll live to regret this. Oh, great. Now I sound crazy.
Oh, that's the one. Was it Brother from Another Series?
Yeah, it's Sideshow Bob and Cecil.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh. But so sound, or music and all that fun stuff. Honestly, as we've come to find over doing this a number of times, I'm not that great at picking out sound.
No, you're super not.
Yeah. No,
well, you're okay with sound effects. It's music where you really fall down.
Yeah, exactly. Where I'm like, ooh, pretty, and then just nothing. And so, but honestly, the music for this one, again, I couldn't hum any of it for you, but it definitely to me had the feeling of like old school, just like old school, like Final Fantasy Tactics, like old school JRPG.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to say it's generic because that downplays it. I don't want to say like, oh yeah, it was like canned music, but it was as emotive as most music in the genre, I feel,
Yeah, I get what I get the backhanded compliment you're giving to the very talented composers that wrote the music.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, so this is, I think because this was your first time playing through, like, I think if you played this a few times, like some of these songs would get it embedded in you the way like the Tetris theme or the, I don't know, Dr. Mario theme might, like some piece of music, because they're very good melodies. Like it's not just environmental music, like there's melodies, like each character has their song. And then there's like the battle music, which you hear a bajillion times, and there's the boss music, and then there's like the big scary boss music, and you do like start to internalize some of those things. And just like kind of as an aside, like little bit of revealing my soul here. When my older daughter was very young and I had to sing her to sleep at night, I didn't want to sing like nursery rhymes and crap, partially because they get annoying, but also because those are like active songs. Like when you sing a nursery rhyme to a kid, you expect them to like engage, right. If it's like this little piggy, they like point at their toes. And if it's, Mary had a little lamb, maybe they like clap along with you or something. So I didn't think those were good songs to like lull a kid back to sleep. So I would just pick like a handful of different old video game songs, like World 1-1 in Super Mario Brothers, or like the Legend of Zelda Overture, and like I would hum those to like try and get her back to sleep. And I don't know why exactly this happened, because this predates us replaying this game. But for my younger daughter, I just picked Marley's theme as the song that I sing to her when I'm putting her to bed.
Aw.
And right? It's like it's such a good piece of music. And like there've been a few nights where like she was like really, she wasn't feeling well. She was like a little sick, and so she's like all nuzzled up against me, and like I'm humming this like very sad kind of, it's not sad, it's like bittersweet, this like romantic, emotive kind of song, to my infant daughter. And I'm like, if I burst into tears, she's probably not gonna fall asleep.
Probably
So
not.
like I gotta keep it together.
Yeah, no, and like I said, like it's I couldn't, again, just, and this is mostly a function of my inability to process music, apparently.
Yeah, George cannot music.
Apparently, which is bizarre for somebody who did musical theater as a kid, but
I never saw any of your performances. Maybe they were terrible.
clearly I mean, everything you have says that they would be. That is a reasonable hypothesis. But no, I will say that all of the music that they played, there was never a doubt in my mind what I was supposed to be feeling, which again is maximizing for immersion, So like the menu music is kind of like, and I'm not even going to try to sing it because I'm afraid that I've got one tune in my head and I'm afraid it's the wrong one. But anyways, it's almost like good elevator music. It's very, just kind of, like because you're in a hold pattern, like you're in the pause menu, but then like when Marley is like excited to see Chrono again for, because she totally thought he was dead. Like I was just kind of like, yeah, that kind of like wave of emotion that you get, like the weird, like, you were sad because you thought that you had lost this person, but you couldn't allow yourself to be sad because you couldn't really wrap your mind around the fact that this person would be gone forever. And so now they're back, so you don't have to process that emotion, but you still process it anyways at the same point in time, like realizing that you won't have to live without this person. Like, yeah, I got all that from the music. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think the knowing how to feel,
Yes.
I think, is an important description for it, because although I would say that I could probably hum half the music from this game, like I would say that these are hummable, memorable melodies. That is secondary, if not tertiary, to them accurately communicating feeling. You should feel nervous when Magus's music is playing because he gonna kill you,
Yeah.
and he's going to summon the devil to like end the world, or so you think, and then you find out later, no, not really. But
Super psyched.
Like Chrono's music is all like exciting, and Robo's music is very like futuristic, and you just know how to feel during those things, even if you don't remember the tune later.
Yeah, and that's what I think that most music. I fear that, like, especially in modern gaming, that a lot of music, like, they're like, we need to make the next song that everybody's singing. It's like, no, you need to make music that, like, it's all a dance, right? The visuals, the gameplay, the music, all of it should come together to emphasize whatever it is you're trying to emphasize. Like, it's not necessarily immersion or emotion. It may be, like a particular theme or whatever it is, but whatever your core aesthetic is, and in this case, I think it is immersion and emotion. It does a great job emphasizing that. So like I said, if at any point, even if like I just kind of jumped into the middle of this game, like let's say that I hadn't played it in a while, kind of forgot what the plot was, jump into the middle of it and see a scene, I could tell you what the tone of that scene is just by the music. I don't need to know all of the plot leading up to it, because you can tell by both the visuals, which we talked about, supporting the like if it's supposed to be sad, like the visuals are darker and the music is grim and everything's awful. Like in the future, and I actually have a note here, like in the future, at one point it was like, in the year 2300 AD, everything's crappy. And I was like, okay. And then it was like, that's because in 1999, the world ends. I'm like, okay, well, it's the year 1000 now for me. So that sounds like a whole lot of not my problem.
And that is future Chrono's problem.
That's future Chrono's great grandkids' problem, man. But the music and the visuals are so dour in the future where I was like, no, man, I got to do something about this. This is awful for everybody forever.
Well, and when you find that out, your party is still just you, Marley, and I'm gonna say Luca,
Yeah.
although it might be Lucca, but I like Luca better.
Luca is the way I know how to pronounce it, but I think it might just be because, past Lions is talking to future George that heard you say that name at some point.
Luca it is.
Yep.
So it's you, Marley, and Danielle. And when that happens, like when you watch the footage of the world ending, which is weird that they had a camera like up in space taking video of that, but let's not split hairs.
Do you not?
I mean, I do, but I know how weird that is, which is why I'm surprised. But the visuals and the music kind of do a nice little play together because Chrono can't really have much of a reaction because he's the silent protagonist. So it's all sort of up to Marley and Luca, and Luca is very kind of like grim about it, like, oh my god, this is how the world ends. But she's a scientist, so she's not in denial, whereas Marley, who is like a consummate optimist, is just like, no, under no circumstances is this acceptable. We have to stop the devil from coming out of the ground and killing everyone, which seems like a lofty task at this stage in the game for her to just be like, this is what we're going to go do now.
Yep.
Like a couple hours ago, we were at the fair and now we're going to go stop Satan from ruining everything.
And
Space Satan.
I think this one's actually Earth Satan. Like,
well, he falls from
yeah,
space
yeah,
and
right,
he
right.
buries himself in the earth.
Yeah, like a tick. He's like a big giant galactic tick. But
Yes.
man, the TV show The Tick would have been way different if it was Lavos instead of the tick.
Not nearly as funny.
Boom, and you just see like Lavos like break out of the earth. Yeah, and actually though, I think that speaks again to the devotion to like, and this is not something we normally talk about, but like to the characters, because and also I think that almost kind of makes Marley it speaks to both her existing character and the fact that she's a good ruler, in the sense that it's like, so she's like, we have to fix this. And it's like, yeah, it's Satan coming out of the earth and consuming it. There's nothing we can do. She's like, don't care. We got to fix it. Non-negotiable. Like that is definitely like a ruling class, like a princess or a prince, where it's just kind of like, don't care. I don't fully understand things that are outside of my control because nothing's outside of my control. So we're going to fix this. But at the same point in time that she's like wanting to fix that, it's like, well, that's good. That is something that should be non-negotiable,
Yeah, I'd say it's like it's her belief that they have the resources and skills to succeed might spring from like a life of privilege, but there's like an empathy that's very much inherent in her character, where because she's very focused on like all the people who die and how the world is destroyed, and there's actually there's like 10 different times where you can potentially go face Lavos throughout the game, and they, that lead to all the different endings. And if you choose to fight him and you die, you actually get, a bad ending where it shows like a colored version of the world, and it then fades to like kind of grays and reds, and it says, but the future refused to change.
Yeah. No, actually, so I looked up after the game, I looked up on Wikipedia like all of the different endings. And to be honest, there's so many. I got through like 5 and I was like, I can't even wrap my mind around this anymore. But the first one was the bad ending. And I'm like, that's beautifully bleak, I think, because it's just kind of like, I think that reinforces the fact that, it's like, no, failure can happen. You can fail. And then just the future is just, it's a fixed point in time. I'm sorry. I'm so very sorry.
Well, it makes the stakes feel more realistic, because then when Marley is very upset and she does the angry character animation and it's the super sad music and there's, all of this tension, it's like, well, if you can always just continue unlimited times, which I mean, it's a video game, of course you can, but if you can just continue unlimited times, there's like a little bit less tension, no matter how well the emotions conveyed. But if the effects of your failure are actually thrown in your face, it's like, oh, look, you failed to defeat Lavos, everybody dies.
Well, and also too, it's, I guess, like, to me, the difference is that you're given So like you said, like you can continue as many times as you want to, but you're given the option of failure, you know? So it kind of like feels like the training wheels are taken off. Like even common current JRPGs and current RPGs kind of prevent you from failing, you know? Like so it's kind of like to use a great or similar example, like Baldur's Gate 2, right? That was a game where like you set off in the very beginning and it's like, hey man, you need to go to town A, and you're like, whatever, I'm not going to town A, I'm going to this other place. It's like, yeah, well, somebody's gonna take a sword and blow you into meaty chunks, you know, like so then all of a sudden you're like, oh god, there are stakes and I can absolutely like die, you know? So
Yep.
that way it's all of a sudden it's like you're choosing to continue on this mission. You know what it is? You know what it is? It's the refusal of the call from the hero's journey.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Artsy.
Literary. I have a couple notes about sound effects, apart from music. One of which is the noise Lavos makes when he yells or bellows. I don't know what you would call it. Shrieks.
Did you?
Makes me want to like die a little bit, like a lot.
Yeah. No, that sound was pretty awful. I did not care for it.
Yeah, and it's used fairly sparingly. Like there are several times in the game where you hear that noise, but there's like a fair amount of breathing room in between them. But every time you hear that, because it's fairly unlike anything else in the game. Like there are a few other monsters that like shriek, but God, I don't know. It's like the noise he makes when he emerges, I guess, and then he makes it kind of again when the outer shell dies, and it's like I don't know. Here's a note to future me. If you want to depress all of the listeners, insert that noise into the show right here. I'm not going to do it. That's like research. It's more work. I'm not going to do that. But
a part of me
but
just
that noise,
drop an F-bomb right there, so you had to. Just like force your hand. It's like, man, you got to put something there. Might as well be that noise.
But it's so. I mean, first off, only he makes that noise, right? So it's unique to him, which means you associate it with him. But it's like visceral and chunky and grating and horrible, and like it's really, there's a limit to how complex the sounds the game can produce are on the Super Nintendo. And you know the sound of like the sword slash is like feels really good, and the sound of like the magic spells is like really satisfying. You know, like the electricity like pops, and the fire spells got like a rumble, and the ice spells have kind of like a crisp, it's like one like sharp note all at once. Like everything feels really good and really appropriate to whatever it is. Like if you know some enemies like throw rocks and like it makes like a little like thunk noise, but that friggin' sound Lavos makes just makes you want to kill him and then yourself, or yourself and everybody else. Like it's freaking awful. It's so awful.
Oh yeah, no,
but it's supposed to be.
Yeah, exactly. It's supposed to be. And actually, you know, to go off on a tangent, I'm sure you probably remember this. Because it's probably etched in both of our minds. I remember at one point we were in your room and somebody sent you like a link. This was back before, you know, the internet was in its final form. But it was like, you know, one of those jump scare videos. And so,
oh my god,
yeah. And so like we were both like leaning in close to the screen, and you know, like desperately trying to do this thing, and like horrifying image pops up, and then like that godforsaken noise, and I swear to God that lasted 5 hours. I know it only lasted like 4 seconds, but like so it's
there are two things that can make time dilate. One of them's gravity, and the other one is being pretty positive you're about to die.
Yeah, because like I just remember, you know, like just I remember having the conflicting emotions of wanting it. Literally fight and flight were hitting me at the same time. Was like I wanted to reach out and stop the noise, and I wanted to leave and never hear it again. So Lavos doesn't quite hit that, but that being said, like that's with the limitations, like kind of like what they're going for is, in my opinion, is
certainly
it's like the, you know, you hear this thing, or another a good example would be like it's similar to like the fright effect from dragons in D&D, you know, where like you see it and you're like, oh god, you know. So it's like it's trying to like evoke that emotion of just kind of like, no, this thing is literally unbelievably powerful and unearthly. So nothing in life has prepared you for this. Now you got to go fight it.
And there's a few other kind of like with Marley's like pistol whipping animation. There's a few polished places with the audio that are, it's not really the quality of the sound effect, because I mean the Lavos sound effect I think is a quality sound effect, right? But there are limitations to how horrifying they can make it. Maybe they could have made it worse, and that's just like where they stopped.
No,
But there's a few. Yeah, oh yes, yeah, I mean you definitely like the music. You know how to feel.
Yep.
But there's a few kind of like little polished things with sound effects, and I kind of with the music, and I think I forgot to mention this, but most of the time when you enter a battle, like the battle music starts. But there's a few times where what's going on is like relevant to the story. So the like excited let's go get 'em music actually continues through battles, or like the sad all is lost music continues into battles, and it changes how you feel about things. And there's a specific there's like 2 or 3 times this happens where the sound effects get like an echo or like a reverb. So sound effects that normally sounded, one way, now under these certain circumstances sound different. And the best example I can give is, did you do the side quest where you go and save Luca's mother?
Yes.
Okay. So did you notice that everything has a creepy echo, and that's the only place in the game that you hear that music?
No, but again, troglodyte ears.
Yeah. So everything while you're doing that, all the sound effects have like a slight reverb, and that's the only place in the game you hear that like awkward music. Also, it's the only place in the game where there's like another cool visual cue where the time gate is red instead of like the blues and purples.
I did notice that, and I was just kind of like,
Yeah. Well, and I mean, there's just like all these little things to make you feel like uneasy, and it happens early enough in the game that it would make you like, if you're thoughtful about your game playing, it happens early enough in the game that it might make you think like, is this going to happen other times? Like, I don't know where Chrono's father is. Like, do I save him later? Like, are there going to be other like little side things? And there aren't. This is like a wholly unique event, and other people have their own little side stories, but this kind of change up on the time travel mechanic only happens to Luca. It happens for no reason that is ever explained, and it's like this little masterful, like when we were talking about in visuals, like I mean, yeah, okay, they palette swapped colors on the time gate, but like the time gates are a crucial thing to the game. When one of them is suddenly a different ominous color, you friggin' take notice. And even if you didn't notice the echoey, weird music and the sound effects all being off, you probably felt it. Like you felt uneasy, which is how you're supposed to feel.
Yeah. No, I definitely and like I said, I think that the realistically the best praise you can give music is like the second best praise would be like, oh, it's amazingly catchy and I love the music, right? The best praise would be, I love the music and I always knew how to feel. Like you said, is that it's just kind of like, if you're supposed to feel uneasy, the music lets you know that, like especially I think that you've played the game a number of times, it's one of your favorites, but for me I think that it's kind of a good thing that I don't necessarily remember all of the music because it was never obtrusive, like literally to me.
Yeah, I mean, I can hum those songs because I've heard them 100 million times, not because the first time I heard it I was like, well, this is seared into my memory forever.
Yeah, it's not like Dr. Mario, where literally the first time you hear it, it's just like, oh god, this is my life now.
Yeah, because I mean, it's I don't think it's a bad thing to recognize that music is happening, but it's immersion breaking if while you are hearing the exciting escape music, your primary focus is on the exciting escape music.
Right.
escape. Oh my God, I said escape with an X. It's like, that's not where your attention should be. You should be aware of it. You should definitely be feeling the effect of it. And you should, maybe it's okay to be aware of it. But if that's your primary thing, if you're standing there while the guards bear down on you because you're like, this is a catchy tune, like, then it's not really accomplishing its goal.
No. But but anyways, that's pretty much the highest praise I can give audio, and that's all I've got for audio. So I don't know if you've got anything else you want to touch on.
No, I mean the lava. There are a lot of clever uses of sounds, and we'll talk about this a little bit when we get to mechanics. But there's sounds that are, if you listen very closely, it's like, oh, sound A is used in this case and also in this other case, and it's the exact same sound effect, but it's used effectively enough that when it's used in case A, you're like, that's definitely what that would sound like. And then in case B, you're like, that's definitely what that would sound like. And they never do case A and case B in such close proximity that you are like, wait a minute, that was the same noise. So like there's very artful use of, like, I think the sound of you getting hit with a rock is the same sound that it makes when like certain objects open.
Right.
Because it's like it's just like a little like clunk noise.
Right.
And it's like, but as long as you don't get hit with a rock within like 2 seconds of opening a thing, like, you just never really notice that.
Right. And like you said, like, those sound effects are all appropriate. And I mean, especially considering with some animations and sounds, even in modern games where now they have whole engines dedicated to it that can wildly screw that up. You know, it's like, well, sometimes especially, not only is this game very, very good, but I think that it is remarkable considering that the limitations that they were operating under were, like you said, like, they probably did that not for lack of having a different nuanced sound effect, but because they only had so many sounds that they could use. So they were like, well, we're going to maximize for this other stuff, and probably nobody will notice. And I sure didn't. So
yeah. I mean, I'm sure a lot of I wouldn't even call them nitpicks. Like, these aren't really complaints. They're just things that, after having played the game so many times, I've noticed that they have occurred. But that's, you know what, I'm pretty okay with it.
And that actually leads us very nicely into the visuals. So visuals. First of all, just like off the top, the sprites I thought were amazing. I thought they were very, very well done. Really no notes in that area. I mean,
you surely noticed who did the artwork for this game.
I mean, it had to be Akira Toriyama, right?
It's Akira Toriyama.
Okay. Yeah. It's either Akira Toriyama or 13-year-old George, because all I knew how to draw was Dragon Ball Z drawing. So
yeah,
seeing it, I mean, it's a time travel bit. Maybe I go back in time and do the artwork for this, but it's pretty confident it was Akira Toriyama.
Yeah. No, and I mean, this is the one thing the Nintendo DS version has over the original Super Nintendo version, is the Nintendo DS version has a few key sequences throughout the game where they inserted fully animated cutscenes drawn by Akira Toriyama.
Nice.
And it's, I mean, you literally have a Dragon Ball Z t-shirt on right now. And, I do. You do. I mean, having, grown up on Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z and not GT, there's like a certain affinity for his art style that just makes it like it's just like part of growing up.
Yeah, it's
seeing these characters, because he can only draw like one man and one woman. So like, you see all the men and you're like, oh, these are all Goku, and all the women are Bulma, and you're like, okay, this is Akira Toriyama's artwork.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, but kudos to Akira Toriyama being like, I can draw one man and one woman. I shall create an empire.
Yes. Now give me all your money.
It's like, yeah, all of my money and the bulk of my childhood and probably the predominant trajectory in my life has all been. So, thank you, Akira Toriyama. Thank you for drawing two people.
But it's the graphics do an actually pretty serviceable job of, because I mean, this is Super Nintendo, but this game came pretty late in the Super Nintendo's life. I think this was released in the US in 95. So like mid 95. I think it was like August 22nd. I read it down somewhere, but you know how we are in research.
It shows you're for nerds.
Nerds and squares like pants. But it's this is toward the end of the Super Nintendo's life, but these are probably some of the best graphics that ever hit that system. Like, there's incredible detail. There's like the full color range is used. Nothing ever feels like muddy unless it's supposed to be muddy, and things that are supposed to be bright and colorful are bright and colorful. And there's like particle effects, like big air quotes, particle effects, where there's like the magic has like a spectacular feel to it.
Yes.
And everything, like all the animations are unique and exciting. And my only like negative note that I could come up with, because I didn't want to be all sunshine and rainbows, my only negative note about the graphics is because there's so much, like there's water magic and lightning magic and fire magic and ice magic, but ice magic and water magic are actually the same thing. There's every once in a while something like an enemy would do something and I would not be 100% confident what like element that was and how I should respond. And I can't say for sure that that's the fault of the graphics. That may have been an intentional design choice. They're like, sometimes we'd like you to have to guess.
Yeah, I mean, very well, maybe. I thought that specifically, well, two things. One is that you bring up the animations. I thought the animations were very solid. Especially because, like I've said in other podcasts, like I've done a very, very, very small amount of like work with like pixel art, and it's not easy. And so, like the fact that they got even nuanced motions, like shaking your head, like they shake their heads a not insubstantial amount.
Yeah, little facial expressions.
Yeah, but and like for example, Marley, when she gets like super excited, they always like kind of like have her like jumping up and down, like
right.
And so because it would be, you can't really like see her smile, like the graphics aren't that honed, but you're never searching for what the character's current emotional state is, because they have like the excited animation and then like the sad animation and like the determined animation, but each person's animation is different and fitting of that character,
Yeah, like one of the first things you see her do is her yell, where like her ponytail kind of sticks out and gets pointy, and like her body language, like she throws her arms down at her side and she like arches her back and her mouth gets like cartoonishly large. And they never are afraid to almost like break from reality. Like it's almost like a lot of anime and manga tropes in relatively rudimentary pixel art, but it makes everything feel more expressive than what they could have done with if they tried to make the animations more realistic.
I agree. And that's one of the things that I wrote down that I thought they did very well, which was they decided to firmly plant themselves on like the left side of the uncanny valley,
Oh yes.
But that's good, because like some other games, especially in this era that came out, where they're like, no, we're gonna go for realism, and you're like, yeah, no, it's not very realistic because you just can't do it. And then on top of that, like it just kind of falls flat. Whereas this one, like you said, it's they're very expressive there, and I wouldn't have thought to put those two things together, but it is very anime-esque, where like you said, there was a couple of times, I believe at one point, when the Chancellor finally gets his comeuppance, which I was really excited about. Like that guy was such a prick, but anyways,
a total prick,
and like such a stereotypical like prick too, like just
yeah, he's the evil vizier.
Yeah, and so it was just kind of like you meet him and it's just kind of like, hey man, what's going on? He's like, hey, so I'm gonna be a pain in your butt. It's like, oh god, you're gonna be a pain in my butt for a while, aren't you? But then like you finally are like, all right, I got my comeuppance, and like, yeah, I was on trial and I beat you, man. What? And he's like, all right, man, let's go. We'll just process your paperwork. Yep, he's a criminal. Blow him up. I'm gonna go take it. It's like, it's like, yep, he's a spy. Blow him up. It's like, whoa, wait, what? And he just like left. And I was like, you tool. But anyways, when he first got his comeuppance, like his jaw hit his knees, and I was just kind of like, yeah, man, no question that he's being given the business right now. So, and it's definitely a very anime thing. Like now that you've mentioned it, I'm having trouble not remembering the anime like lines going by his face. It's like the what?
Oh yeah, no, it's, and I'm sure because I've only played part of the DS one, so I haven't seen all the cutscenes that are in there. I'm sure they're on YouTube, but those are not only Akira Toriyama's art style, but also the way his characters move and the way they interact with the world, and because it's trying to. I mean, I like your analogy of like it's firmly planted on the left side of the uncanny valley. Like their object is to convey emotion and feeling and to allow you as the player to empathize with these characters because it is a role playing game.
Mhm.
And if a big cartoony mouth or big impossible body language is what allows that to happen, then that's what you do.
Right. But they also kept it stylistically and tonally appropriate because, for example, Marley, when she does her like super surprise and like I think her ponytail goes back and her, like you said, jaw drops and she kind of like it's like
Yeah, the big eyes, yeah.
But like they could very easily have done like what was that something Tom Avery?
Oh crap.
Anyways,
Tex.
Yes. We got there. The Tex Avery like eyes popping out kind of like animation. They could have done that, but that would have been like
too far.
Yeah, it would have been too cartoony. and
Yeah.
and that's the thing is they could have very easily made a game where that would have worked, but that's not the tone that they're looking to strike at it like ever here. It's supposed to be like over the top realism, but not cartoonish realism, So they emphasize all of these emotions, but they don't draw it into that space of like, and then they got hit by an anvil and somehow survived.
Right. So I'll shatter the glass for you a little bit because this is one of those things. It's like there's limits to what they could do on the hardware, but when you are aware of those limits, sometimes you're like, oh, that's kind of ridiculous. But they had to do, they did what they could with the tools they had. But like one example is the very first thing that happens in the game for Chrono is your mother wakes you up, you get out of bed, and you scare the cat.
Mm-hmm.
Like you go like, ah, and your cat like runs away. But then you do your victory, like he like pumps his arm like, yes.
Yeah.
And so he does his like victory thing, which I get what they're trying to convey there, but that kind of makes him seem like he abuses that cat.
Mm-hmm. Does he
because,
not? I assume that he did.
Well, if you flash forward to the end of the game, depending on which ending you get, your mother yells at you for never feeding the cat.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe, like he actually does.
Yeah. Maybe that cat's, just an awful cat. Maybe it just,
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah. Maybe it's the type of cat that when you're laying on the ground, it just lays down next to your head and then just swats at you incessantly, like maybe you never know.
But I mean, another thing is like, there's a couple different times in the game where like you dance or you're someplace where there's music and you can optionally dance. And like, if you look closely, the dancing animation is the ladder climbing animation. And it's not like they're similar. Like it is that animation.
Interesting. No, I did not pick up on that. Which
but once you notice it, you're like, they're climbing ladders in their mind.
And I mean, I'm not the best dancer in the world, but I'm pretty solid with ladder climbing. So next time I go to the club, I'm gonna be like, and just climbing them ladders.
I'm sure that's right up there with like the bus driver dance and like the shopping cart.
Yep.
There's definitely, if there wasn't the ladder climb, you're welcome, Clubs of America.
Oh yeah, no, there shall be soon.
I should say clubs of the world.
The one this isn't even a complaint, more of like an observation, is that so like I said, the animations are they're fantastic. I felt they were very on point, very nuanced. There's sometimes though when like I don't know, it just it didn't break for me. Like I wasn't like immediately pulled out of the moment, but I kind of went like that was weird. Cartoons are weird, but like where especially at the end, you're there with the dancers or whatever at the moon ceremony, right? Or at least that's the ending that I got,
Right.
And then you're dancing around with Marley, and I'm like, yeah, man, this is all I wanted. I just wanted a party, I went to a party, and then a bunch of stuff happens throughout time, but then at the end, I got my party, so I was excited about that. And then dancers started exploding out of me.
Exploding out of you. That is not. There's a lot of things that are wrong with that animation sequence, but I'm gonna let you finish.
But yeah, because I mean, I was like, it was towards the end, so I was getting like wrapped up and all this sort of stuff. So I was like looking away regularly. I just remember looking back and just seeing like dancers just flying out of me. I was like, whoa, my God. Weird. And then, but like I said, it wasn't like, oh man, now I can't enjoy the game anymore. It's just like, that was weird.
Well, what's so weird about that is not only do dancers seemingly fly out of you, the player character, which is pretty bizarre, but I don't know enough about the low level programming, but they do something to make that like a processor intensive task. Cause that's like the one time in the game that the frame rate just falls through the floor. Like just for some reason, like when they explode out, it's like they just slow to a crawl. So they kind of like awkwardly hang in midair. And it's not that that's the animation for those dancers, because if you continue to walk, you will notice that your walking animation is also awkwardly slowed down. And they also, they can land on parts of the map where like you normally wouldn't stand. Like that whole thing, I've gotten, so there's the hardest ending to get in the game, because this game literally has 12 endings, and then later in the re-release they added another one.
Because 12 was not enough.
12 was not enough. But the hardest ending to get is called the Dream Project ending, where there's little sprites of all the actual like programmers and designers, and you can talk to them, and they say little commentary, and you kind of get the feeling that crazy dancer exploding animation is like they could see one day they would be able to draw curves, because those dancers move unlike anything else in the game. They don't move on north, south, east, west, or on the diagonals. They move in almost like a fluid arc. And nothing else moves like that. And I kind of wonder if that was like someone figured out that they could do that animation, but it drops the frame rate from like 30 to 10. And they were like, yeah, we can't do this during normal gameplay, so we're going to put it in there at like the very end.
Well, because it's almost like somebody went up to, like an old computer, and they're like, hey, man, just draw on lines. Come in, clock in at 8, draw lines, clock out at 5, go home to my family, draw some more lines for fun, and then go to bed. It's like, hey, check this out. And they showed him a line, and they slowly bent the line, and you just see like the computer's like eyes open up, and it's like, what? And then and so then they could never go back. Once it's flowers for Algernon. Once the computer became aware of the circle, it couldn't go back to just lines.
It's awful. That poor computer.
Who'd have thought we would get a Flowers for Algernon reference in on Chrono Trigger?
Sad now. Anyway, there's the one thing, because we've talked about this on other games, especially older games where they rely heavily on palette swapping. And I had originally made a note of that because I was like, oh, I wonder how George felt about all the palette swapping. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, this game has like 1,000 unique enemies. Like, okay, they did a little bit of palette swapping.
They did a little bit of palette swapping, but I actually have in my notes, I was like it at no point, Bob. It certainly wasn't on par with some other games that have made some people terrible people. Like it's not. It's
not palette swap the game.
It's not. We had 3 characters in a mountain of cocaine, and so like it wasn't that. Where they just. I mean, the enemies were varied. They represented their locations very well, and that's something that we've discussed in other podcasts. That apparently, I'm finding through playing these old games that it's very important to me, is that the enemies be thematically appropriate. So
agreed.
Like that. In the mechanical future world, you're fighting mechanical future monsters, and in past world, you're fighting like reptiles and dinosaurs and stuff. As opposed to like when you're on the back of an eagle and you're fighting skeletons for some reason, just to, I mean, I'm pulling that out of nowhere. No game would actually do that. I'm just making it up.
Never.
Only a garbage game would do that. So, but yeah, so I mean, like, so at one point, I think it was the place where I became aware, not like starkly aware of it, but where I was just kind of like, was with the golems that Lord Dalton throws at you.
Yeah.
But to be fair,
yeah, because there's a couple that are like, it's literally the same monster with just like a color change.
Yeah, but like to be fair, I think like you get the golem and then the golem twins or something like that, and then the super master golem or whatever. But I was fine with the palette swapping on that because it should be palette swapped. Like they're all.
Yeah, they're not acting like they're different things.
Right. It's not like, look at this rat and then this rat that's 1,000 times more powerful and in a different area, but, it's still.
Because it's blue.
Yeah. It's a blue rat. Yeah, no, it was like, oh, well, that makes sense. It'd be, to me, it was kind of like a iron golem and an adamantine golem. Like they look different in D&D just because artists got to get paid and, whatever. But I mean, like if you showed me a iron golem and an adamantine golem and they were palette swaps of each other, I'd be like, no, that makes sense because they're both made out of metal. So just one metal's more less irony. That's...
more less. Yes. No, that's. Are you a chemist?
Yeah. I'm very good
so
at what I do.
in defense of silly things like ladder climbing for dancing, there are other places where there's such incredible attention to detail that makes the world feel more alive. And I think there's lots of little examples of this, but my favorite one is Marley uses a crossbow as her weapon. Mm-hmm. And everybody has like their weapon type. So like she gets stronger and stronger crossbows and Chrono gets stronger and stronger swords. And like everybody has their one type of weapon, which is a very JRPG thing to do.
It's nice that they add stronger and stronger of those like lying around,
Yes. Yeah. Oh, how convenient that there's a crossbow when they know I have Marley in my party. But there's, so she, I mean, it's a crossbow. She holds it out in front of her and she fires. And it never looks like a crossbow bolt. It usually looks like a big magic-y swirly animation. But if you're right next to an enemy, and we'll talk about battles when we get to battles, but if you're right next to an enemy, she actually pistol whips them with the bottom of the crossbow. Yeah. So like if she's right up close to an enemy, instead of shooting them from point blank range, she has a completely different animation. It's not like a half, but she actually swings the bottom of the crossbow.
I don't think I ever got
what's her name?
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say I don't think I ever got that animation because I mostly used her for healing. So
yeah, if she's not fighting a lot, it's easy to miss. Luca's the same way. Your childhood friend, the sciencey girl. She carries a gun, like a laser gun. But she has a hammer that's like part of her animations. Mm-hmm. And when an enemy's up close to her, she just friggin' clubs them with a hammer. And it's like, it's still, if you have like an elemental weapon, it still does elemental damage. Like it's not like a secret secondary weapon, but it does have a different animation and it does make a different sound effect, which just gives it like a really nice kind of, it makes the characters feel more real.
I definitely think that, in fact, in all aspects of this game, not just the animation, they maximized for immersion and feel. So like, and honestly, I feel like more games should even modern games should do this, but like no, I mean, because a lot of modern games, especially with the processing power we have now, they're like, oh, well, I want to go for spectacle, and it's like, well, great, it looks really pretty. I don't give a crap about anything that's happening right now. So, and in fact, as we've discussed before, I have that strong problem with a lot of movies these days where it's like, well, the visuals are stunning. It's like, great, I can go look at a magic eye for an hour and giggle like a 4-year-old if I want to. I don't have to go to the movies. But yeah, so I think that's what they maximize for. So like little things like that, where it's just kind of like, your immersion isn't broken because all of a sudden, the person is using a gun and firing wildly at point blank range. It's like, no, they're right on top of them. She's like physically hitting them,
Yeah.
That I think is remarkable, especially for a game of this era,
Well, and it's, I mean, role-playing games have the unique kind of mission of specifically wanting you to feel like you're in this world and you're, in maybe not even in because I mean Chrono's a silent protagonist, but he still has his own personality and people respond to him as if he's talking. So I mean, you are him, but you're kind of everybody. And like when you play Super Mario World, or at least for me, like I'm super aware that I'm playing a video game, right? Like when I play F-Zero or, even a realistic game like a sports game, which I mean I don't play that often, but like I usually know like, oh, I'm playing a video game right now. But in an RPG, you can kind of get sucked in and feel like, oh, these things are happening to me. Like I am the character that is living this story. And that's all those little polished things just make that experience like more rich and more believable. Even in the sense of a cartoony universe, you still like suspend your disbelief.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, I mean, as far as I was concerned, I was Chrono, especially the way you can kind of scientifically look at that is that Chrono got every single magic, speed, tab, all of those that I picked up right to Chrono. That none for all for Chrono, So later on, and I mean, I guess should we even say spoilers? Like we're going to be talking about this game. Spoilers.
No, it's a 22-year-old game as of the time of this recording, so I'm pretty cool ruining story points.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if you haven't played it by now and you clicked on the podcast about it, then you just brace up.
Then pause it, go play it, and come back and finish the episode.
But yeah, when Chrono dies, or kind of sort of dies, which we can talk about more later, and I really love the way they handled that. But yeah, when he dies, I was like, what the hell, man? Like I gave all of the good swag to this character. Like now I'm stuck with a frog and a cave person who can't even speak right. Like what the hell,
Well, and I mean, just as a direct tie into visuals specifically, the way he dies when he like is evaporated into a cloud of dust, it's a unique animation. Happens nowhere else in the game. Right? And it's like, so, I mean, you get down to like, oh, we only have a few kilobytes left. I don't think they maxed out what the cartridge can hold necessarily, but there are limitations to what you can do. And to say we're going to dedicate some resources to this character dying because that's a big freaking deal.
Yeah.
And it's like that's, because I mean, they could have just had him collapse. They could have had his sprite, like they have the way like Marley disappears when she's like ripped from time. Like they could have, because that's a calculated effect. It's not an animation, right? Like her sprite is just like jumping around on the screen when that happens. But the way Chrono like basically dissolves into a pile of dust, like that's seriously, you're like, oh my God, I am dead.
Yeah. He's dead. We're dead. It's all dead. Yeah. No, I mean, so just to kind of put my bow on visuals, realistically, I mean, there's with any game, there's some things that you could say, oh, well, this could have been done better. But honestly, game of this era, like I said, they maximized for immersion, and I feel that they were successful. So there was at no point where an animation happened where I was just suddenly like, oh my God, I'm playing a video game and I can't stand it. There were some times like you said, like where I was like, what was that about? But they were very few and far between, and they happen so irregularly that I don't feel like, for me personally, I normally have to have 2 or 3 things wrap on the glass of the fourth wall before it shatters, So that was just like a single person like knocking on it, and I was just kind of like, yeah, it's fine, But at no point was it broken, in my opinion.
No, I agree. I would say for this era, the graphics are basically as good as they could possibly be.
I would agree.
So I could talk about this game literally forever, but there's one other thing in my notes that I wanted to make sure I mentioned, because it's like a cutesy polished detail in a place that it is entirely unnecessary to include this level of detail. But as you go through the game and you save, if you noticed, each time you save, there's like a little title. And as you progress through the story, those little titles change. And if you save right after like a tragic event, it's like a little sad title. And if you save right after like a great event, it's like a we're excited to save the world little title. So it'll be some, I should have probably taken some notes, but it's it'll be something, you know, like you save and it's like you know, a sad day in the future, like right after you learn that everybody dies, or you know, so something like Onward to Lavos. So it's like almost like little chapter headings. So you can look at the save file and kind of tell not just where you are in the game, but a little bit about like kind of how you're supposed to feel about what you either just did or about to do next.
No, that's to be honest, I did not pay attention to that at all.
I mean, it's down in the corner, like, unless, because some of them are very, very short, like one word, and some of them are like a short sentence. So unless you notice, like, oh, all of a sudden there's a ton of words down there, like you could very easily just be like mashing A to save and like get back to gameplay.
And that's mostly what I did during the save. So I was like, yeah, save. Okay, good, done. You know, but yeah, no, that's a really clever. I mean, again, this game is very nothing if not clever, and so you know, I think that this kind of brings all the others, like, you know, the visuals, you know, as we discussed, the sound and the gameplay, the story, it all pulls together damn near perfectly. I mean, you know, like I said, like there's some minor gameplay, you know, like things like that, but things that modern games with all of their power brought to bear and everything that we know about gameplay still do way worse. So yeah, no, I definitely, I mean, and this kind of leads into did it hold up? And in my opinion, I think I can say honestly it did, because I have never played this game before and I had a blast. So yeah, no, I enjoyed it. Play it again.
Yeah, I mean, I realized sitting down that I went I went into the Goldilocks zone of time since I played it last, because I knew what to do and where to go and like the general story beats. But then like when I got to the trial, I was like, oh, they're going to punish me because I ate the guy's lunch so I could gain a couple levels at the beginning. But I forgot that the one guy comes in and lies about you. Like there's one guy, I don't know if you had this guy because I don't remember what causes him to show up, but there's this one guy that the Chancellor has paid off.
Yeah.
And he came in and lied about me. And like I had, before I had the feeling of like, oh, I forgot that happened, I had the correct emotional response of being like, no, that didn't happen. That is not what happened. And so like, even though I've played this game, you know, literally dozens of times, I haven't played it in just long enough that some of those emotional moments and those really good immersion, you know, quality design, quality writing moments still had a really profound impact. And I was like, you know, if you can play a game, let's say 20 times over a span of 20 years and still get like delight and excitement and be sad and be happy and be angry and be scared at all the right times, like that's a damn good game.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Yeah, so I mean, honestly, yeah, did it hold up? Absolutely. I would 100% play it again. The only
100% would New Game Plus.
Yeah, would New Game Plus. The only downside would be that, you know, it was, there was so much to it that you know, and we discussed this, is that, you know, it takes a lot of time and energy to play a game of this, you know, caliber, size and scope, that honestly I'm not sure that we should even try to top it until we just top it with a little green hat, you know.
So you're saying that the only thing that could top this would be like some sort of like forest green stocking cap.
Yeah, something like that. Like, I feel that since we, you know, did this big time travel game, that we should link to that somehow, because we played it in the past. So if we were to link back to this game somehow, that would probably be the way to go.
The curtain falls, the music plays, the credits roll, then it all fades to black, and you're left by yourself The fanfare is gone. There's no player 2 there by your side to share victories won. But as you slowly progress down the hall to your bed, a few great events leak back into your head from the time that you spent traversing the land, battling evil, fighting the darkness, just sword in hand. Your memories creep in with the edge of a smile. You realize again what you lost for a while.